What's up, everybody? So, I was checking out, I couldn't finish it, but I watched most of it, and it is a debate between Mike Winger and Matt Dillahunty. And I had some thoughts. And just for the record, and as usual, we're gonna go on some tangents. I thought Matt Dillahunty was a lot more convincing, i.e., won this debate. The only time that I saw, and I haven't seen all of his debates, the only time I saw anyone basically hang with Matt Dillahunty, and in my opinion, it was a stalemate. I might have to watch that one again because that one went really, really deep. The only time I saw him really, really challenged, and again, I haven't seen but just a handful of his debates, was against Jay Dyer. I'm gonna say that was a stalemate at this point in time, but maybe I'll rewatch it again and have some other thoughts. But yeah, I thought he was a lot more convincing than the Christian in this case. And this is what gets me about some of the atheists that come around here just spouting, basically, right? Just saying things. Um, they're very triggerable. Like they just automatically assume that what is it that you assume about me? That I'm Christian? That I'm Roman Catholic? That like what is it? They just you say something that they don't like, and all they got is just strawman arguments, saying all these things that you never said, applying them to you and charging you with all these things that you never yourself said. Okay? Jesus Christ. I mean, the lack of emotional intelligence, the lack of integrity, the lack of the ability to listen to what's actually being said, the lack of honesty. My God, at least online, atheists are just like, not all of them. Matt Dillahunty certainly isn't that, but it's like you guys clearly weren't breastfed and you were probably, C-section babies, because fuck, you got some serious issues. At any rate, because this will come up, let's take a bit of a tangent and talk about science. Someone had come around saying that, science is knowledge. And, well, that's not inaccurate necessarily. That is what the word has come to mean over the years. But if you look at the known origin of the word from Proto-Indo-European, so before there was Latin, it is supposed that it comes from the root skis, well, however you say that, right? From, again, Proto-Indo-European, which means to cut, to split, which is serendipitous. I don't know. You'll see what I'm talking about. To cut, to split, to separate, right? To isolate one from the other, not to give away. Well, I guess you don't know what I'm going to talk about. But yeah, eventually it has come to mean knowledge, and some people still believe that to this day. However, well, if we agree, if I grant you that science means knowledge, then we also have to agree that the word is being used incorrectly, because it's used to describe pseudoscience, right? Complete and utter trash is like people call that science these days, right? And a perfect example of this was when I proposed the fact that there are competing scientific theories that exist, right? If there are two competing theories and they're both scientific, supposedly, then science can no longer mean truth. But for people raised in this postmodernist, truth is subjective la la land, I guess on some level that makes sense, even though that's just so easily refutable, right? There's no such thing as my or your truth. There's only one. And again, if you disagree, well, you just debunked yourself, dummy. Anyway, let me take a sip of my coffee. So, no, the origin of the word science is not knowledge, but it has come to mean that, probably because at one point science was strictly mathematics and maybe physics, things that were definitely verifiable, right? And yeah, that is considered knowledge. I'll accept that. But a lot of these soft sciences today, this stuff that passes for science, like evolution, right? That's not. How can you have knowledge of something that happened in the past that you cannot demonstrate is happening today? You can't, right? You can't have knowledge of that. And this goes back to the debate with this guy, Matt Dillahunty, right? The guy on the left was claiming to have evidence and some sort of maybe preliminary knowledge of Jesus' resurrection. And Matt was debunking that, saying that no, you would have to have been there. You would have had to have recorded it. Like in order to have knowledge, you'd basically, this would have to be in some way, shape, or form recorded. Okay, for all of us to be able to witness, to see, so, and I think that's fair. But then, Matt doesn't have the same standard, and that was the point of my Everyone is Religious video, right? And what followed from that. Matt doesn't hold the same, because he's a hypocrite, and he's not a skeptic, he's just an atheist. Matt doesn't have the same standard for history, right? Or science, obviously, right? So if you're going to question Jesus's resurrection, basically, whether it happened or not, well, then in that same way, you have to question most of history, our history, because the evidence for that is more or less equivalent, sometimes more, sometimes less, than what you consider history. And it's not like Matt is out there, questioning history in general, right? Because he's not a skeptic, he's just an atheist, right? This is the dishonesty of atheism, right? They have a double standard. He doesn't question history. And I'm not saying all of history is this questionable, because granted, the closer we are to a certain historical event, it's likely that there's more evidence for it, right? That it did happen. But I mean, there are plenty of historical events that predate Jesus, and Matt doesn't question those, right? Because he's not a skeptic. That's bullshit. But coming back around to science, because it was, I believe this was the debate where it was mentioned. And I believe this was the debate where Matt basically proved that he's into scientism, not actual science. And that came in the form, or when he said he got his first jab, and he's waiting to get his second jab. I believe this was the debate. If not this one, some other recent debate on almost, I think, the very same topic, resurrection. So, Matt, who is supposedly a skeptic, who has dedicated his, at least the last 20 years or close to it of his life to going into religious institutions and debating Christians, right? Simply because he lacks the belief in God, right? Like, I lack the belief in unicorns, but you're not seeing me on all the pro-unicorn channels debating, right? Why? If I lack the belief, then I don't believe and I don't disbelieve, right? I'm not saying this thing exists or doesn't exist. I just don't care, right? But he cares. That's the dishonesty of atheism. Like, you don't... And yes, I know we're on a tangent again. And this comes across when he says he lacks the conviction that God exists, right? He lacks the conviction. Now, what's conviction? That's not mere belief. Conviction is a very strong belief. He says he lacks a strong belief in the existence of God. Well, so do I. I don't have a strong belief that God exists. I do believe God exists, but I'm not convinced that he does, right? So it's like he basically tells on himself when he says that he lacks a strong belief in the existence of God. As if that were expected of him or something, right? As if that were like the standard or something. So you kind of believe, Matt? You kind of believe in God? Because if you kind of believe maybe God exists or it's possible that God exists, why the hell would you spend your entire career just about, or a large portion of your career and a huge portion of your life going into religious institutions looking to unhinge Christians, to looking to change their mind about God? It doesn't make any sense. You're just dishonest. And another part of this dishonesty, to get back to the meat and potatoes of this video, is the fact that Matt is not a skeptic when it comes to science, right? Part of this skepticism, insofar as an intellectual movement or an ideology, if you will, is to question not just religion, not specifically religion, not even first and foremost religion, even though that is a cloak that atheists hide behind, right? It's to also question pseudoscience and just basically everything, right? Just be a skeptic. But he is not at all skeptical. I mean, how could he be skeptical if he is getting the jab, right? So going back to science and isolating things, well, to my knowledge, I've never seen a study that isolated any kind of a virus. If you've seen that study, cite it, not the one that I already debunked a million times. Read it yourself, see if that's actually what happened. And, let's talk about it. I've never seen it. And I looked. So I'm pretty sure Matt's never seen it. And he probably never even looked in the first place. Why would he, right? Trust the science. That's his religious belief. Of course it is. You're literally opening this door wide open for the government and all these authorities to inject you with who knows what. You don't know. Does he even know what's in these things? No. He's just, yeah, come on in, guys. My body's your temple, basically, right? Like, what are you doing, dude? How are you, in what way, shape, or form are you a skeptic? And it's interesting because when it comes to, and this is again the double standard that I've been talking about, when it comes to Jesus or Jesus's resurrection, the burden of proof is so high, right? Because Matt's not convinced. He needs to be convinced. No one cares to convince you, Matt. He said in one of these debates something along the lines of, oh, well, the guy that proved Jesus' existence, or the fact that he was resurrected, or that it's possible to do this thing, or something along those lines that had to do with Jesus' resurrection, right? He said, well, the person that has this proof or evidence, well, how come they didn't get the Nobel Prize in science, right? How come? So this thing, whatever it was exactly, it's unimportant, that, impacts Christians and maybe Muslims and maybe some other people here and there. So not nearly the entire planet, right? If someone could show that this thing is true, that a lot of people, not everybody on this planet, believe is true, he should have gotten, Nobel Prize. So that's an argument against this thing being true, right? Or science, knowledge. Well, Matt, where is the person that has, or a team of people, right? And where's their Nobel Prize for isolating SARS-CoV-2? The thing that has literally affected the entire planet, more people insofar as we can tell, than any other thing in the history of this world, has had a greater impact on more people than anything else in human history, right? With, I don't know, overwhelming majority, something probably like 95% of people blindly believing this shit, right? Talk about religion. Where is the Nobel Peace Prize for the person or a team that isolated SARS-CoV-2, right? The presupposition, the foundation of the new normal and that needle injecting something into your body, right? You're a complete and utter hypocrite, bruh. Not only, in my opinion, well, I mean, it's not my opinion, it's a fact. If it exists, again, the burden of proof is on you. I have never seen words on a web page that are considered in this, arena of science. I've never seen anything that described a process by which we, if it were actually implemented in real life, would allow us to say that SARS-CoV-2 was isolated. I've never seen, now listen to what I'm saying, words on a web page or a piece of paper that would lead us to believe that maybe this thing was isolated. I've never seen that, okay? There has never been a scientific study that I can tell produced to show that SARS-CoV-2 was even isolated. Science, right? To isolate. From all the noise, pull out a signal and present it. This is it, right? That's never been done. Excuse me. On top of that, even if some words on some page somewhere do exist that lead us to believe that this did happen, right? Lead us to believe that's still not proof of the thing happening, right? Right, Matt? Were you there to witness it? Right? I mean, this is the standard you have for believing, the standard of evidence necessary to, prove that Jesus was resurrected or that he even existed. Were you there to see it, right? Did you see any of these experiments conducted? You probably never even saw these words on the page that would lead us to believe that this thing actually happened, right? Forget about you actually being there and witnessing the process of isolation of SARS-CoV. None of this exists insofar as you're concerned. It doesn't exist, right? But even if somehow there was a study out there, or words on a piece of paper or a web page describing this process in detail, right? Insofar as you're concerned, that still wouldn't be science, if we want to call science knowledge, right? Because how would you know that those words describe something that actually did happen? How would you know that? It's just a claim, buddy. That's not evidence. It's just a claim. No, it's science. What do you mean it's science? How do you know that those aren't lies? You don't, right? You trust the scientists. Is trust a form of knowledge or is it a form of belief? Why is this so difficult for the atheist to admit, right? This is the dishonesty of atheism. These people are very, very dishonest. And that's me complimenting you or not giving you the benefit of the doubt and not calling you a complete and utter fucking moron, because clearly Matt Dillahunty isn't that. He's a very intelligent man. So what's my other option here? Dishonest, right? Hypocrite. And now is the whole point of, one of the major points of some of my videos on the topic of religion and scientism. You don't hold the same standard. The standard that you put Christians up to, you don't have the same standard when it comes to history, when it comes to science. You trust those things. You believe in those things. But then you turn around and you say, oh, I simply lack the belief. I am not convinced. How are you convinced by science? Something you've never witnessed. And you just trust that these words on some page somewhere are truthful. Right? And then you go wash your hands all the damn time, right? That's a ritual. Wear a mask in certain places, right? Where there are other people around wearing the same mask as you. That's a ritual. Right? You have your high priests, such as Dr. Fauci. You have your God, medical science, maybe. You have the devil, right? The invisible enemy. That's the devil trying to get you. Right? You, perhaps, some of you, listen to medical lectures or press conferences that these high priests give, right? That's your church. And then you live your life according to that gospel, basically. You have no idea if any of this shit is true. You've never even taken the time to investigate it, actually, while calling yourself a skeptic. But you will literally let these high priests, you physically letting them inside with their potions and whatever. You're letting people inject you with something that there's no reason for any of this. What's the reason? Right? Where's the evidence? Fuck evidence, where's the proof? I mean, if you're gonna open that door for the government, like, where's the proof? Forget evidence, we need proof, shouldn't we, if we're skeptics? But the guy's not a skeptic. The guy is an atheist. He is anti-God. No, not without God. He is that also. But he's also anti-God. At least the God that is presented by the traditionally religious people. He is anti all of that because he's got his own God. He has put his faith in mere mortals. So, the guy is not a skeptic. In no way, shape, or form should this guy ever call himself a skeptic and then just submit to the jab because why? For what reason, Matt? Trust the scientists. Trust the science. It's only people who are brainwashed to believe that the way in which, I'm not talking about the origin of the word and what the meaning is, but the way in which we use science, the word science, you really have to conflate the original meaning and what it actually means in the way that we use it today to be able to fall for this con that is scientism. Okay, because most of the shit that's out there, it's not knowledge. You don't know anything. Matt, you don't know anything. We can't even look at what a virus does in the human body. So how can we know what it does in the human body when that's never been recorded, seen by anybody on this planet? And even if it were, you still have to trust that they're telling you the truth. You would. Anyway, this video's going on way too long. Matt Dillahunty is in no way, shape, or form a fucking skeptic. He's just anti-God. Keep it real, people. Be honest. I think it'd be a good start, don't you? Thanks for watching.